New research suggests plants and insects are communicating through ultrasonic sound, undetectable to the human ear.
Plants have been sending out messages this entire time, warning each other, calling for help, and pushing away threats.
We found that plants under stress produce these ultrasonic clicks. This is how it sounds like.
These signals guide insects and shape whole ecosystems, but we never noticed them until artificial intelligence stepped in. Once AI sorted through huge amounts of plant data, the hidden network finally came into focus. And when you see how far plant communication actually reaches, the world around you feels completely different.
Here we have the plants that are without any change in the oxygen and that are not receiving any message.
The hidden signals inside plants. Many of us don't see it, but for plants, life is full of problems. It can dry out, the sun can burn it, insects can chew it, a branch can snap in a storm. Every day the plant has to watch for trouble and react fast enough to stay alive. The strange part is that plants are not just reacting inside in secret, they are sending out signals all the time. They talk in sounds, in tiny body shakes, and in little bursts of electricity that race through their leaves and stems. Our eyes and ears are too weak to pick this up, so we grow up thinking plants are silent. Once people started using special microphones, wires, and smart computer tools, a very different picture showed up. A research group at Tel Aviv University decided to listen to plants in a very direct way. They put tomato and tobacco plants in a soundproof box and pointed very sensitive ultrasonic microphones at them. These microphones pick up sounds at very high pitches called kilohertz. A kilohertz just means thousands of tiny sound waves each second. A healthy young person can hear up to about 20,000 of these waves per second. The microphones in this study listen to much higher pitches, between about 40,000 and 80,000 waves each second. At first the box was almost silent. The plants had enough water and had not been touched. When the plants were stressed, the quiet broke. Some plants were left without water for several days. Others had their stems cut with a blade. In both cases, the microphones picked up short, sharp pops, almost like tiny finger snaps in the air. Stressed plants sent out around 30 to 50 of these little clicks every hour. Plants that were not stressed made far fewer sounds. So we have been walking past fields where plants are popping away, and we just hear nothing. The team then used machine learning. They gave the computer many examples of these plant clicks and told it which ones came from dry plants, which ones came from cut plants, and which came from plants that were not stressed. The computer slowly learned the patterns on its own. After training, it could guess the state of a plant just from the sound pattern, with correct answers in well over half, and often around 3/4 of the cases. If we cannot hear these sounds, who can? Many insects, like moths, can hear very high pitches, much higher than humans. Some small mammals also use high sounds for hunting and for avoiding danger. The Tel Aviv team pointed out that at short range, these plant clicks are strong enough that a moth or another small animal could hear them from several feet away. For a moth, a thirsty plant is a risky place to lay eggs. Dry leaves may not give enough food for the baby caterpillars. A damaged plant might have tougher leaves or more bitter chemicals. Any insect that can tune into that sound gets a useful hint. Do not pick this one. Plants are not only sending out sound, they also listen to the world through tiny vibrations that move through their own bodies. A group of scientists working with a small mustard plant called Arabidopsis did a simple but clever test. They recorded the vibrations of a caterpillar chewing on a leaf. Then they played those exact vibrations back into other plants by shaking the leaf surface very gently. When the plants heard this chewing pattern, they made more defensive chemicals, such as sharp-tasting oils, that make them harder for insects to eat.
When we started this research, we thought it would be the feces of the caterpillars that is attracting these parasitic wasps.
The same plants did not react when the scientists played other sounds and shakes, like the wind or distant noise that did not match the chewing pattern. In other words, the plant could tell the difference between a harmless shake and the specific rhythm of an insect biting into it. Inside the plant, there is another kind of message that runs faster than the buildup of chemicals. When a leaf gets bitten or cut, the cells near the wound change their electrical charge. That change then spreads through the plant as a wave. These are called electrical signals, and they are a bit like the tiny voltage changes that run along a nerve in an animal body. Studies in the model plant Arabidopsis have shown that when a leaf is hurt, special channels in the cell surface open. These channels are called glutamate receptor-like channels because they react to a common amino acid called glutamate, which is also important in animal brains. When glutamate appears around a wound, these channels open, letting charged particles rush in. This starts a wave of electrical change that runs from the damaged leaf into other parts of the plant. That wave also triggers a rise in calcium inside cells, which is another kind of signal. Within a short time, sometimes within seconds and often within a few minutes, leaves that were never touched start to change their own chemistry. They may begin to build more bitter or toxic compounds. They may thicken parts of their surface. They may shift growth, for example, by slowing down stretching and putting more energy into protection. All of that started because one leaf got hurt and sent a fast electrical warning to the rest of the plant. This electrical language is not simple on or off. There are different kinds of electrical waves. Some are brief spikes that last a moment. Others are slower waves called slow-wave potentials that can travel over a longer distance. Different kinds of stress, like heat, cutting, or strong pressure, can create different patterns. Those patterns line up with different mixes of hormones and defense chemicals later on. So the plant is not just yelling help, it is more like sending a code that says what kind of trouble it faces. These signals can also leave a mark that lasts. One famous set of experiments looked at a plant called Mimosa pudica, often called the sensitive plant or touch-me-not. Its small leaves fold up quickly when something touches them. A team led by Monica Gagliano wanted to see if mimosa could learn which touches were safe. They built a drop device that gently dropped potted mimosa plants a short distance many times in a row, without hurting them. At first, every drop made the plants snap their leaves shut. After many drops, the plants stopped closing their leaves. They seemed to realize that this repeated shake did not lead to harm. The most surprising part was how long this change lasted. When the same plants were tested days or even weeks later, they still kept their leaves open during harmless drops but would react to new, different touches. Other research hints that plants can link one signal with another, a bit like learning that one event predicts another. With all of these signals flying around one plant, the data can be very messy when humans try to record it. Tiny changes in color, in leaf shine, in electrical activity, and in the mix of chemicals all happen together. This is where artificial intelligence comes in. Modern cameras that split light into many fine colors can spot changes in leaves that human eyes would never notice. When researchers feed these detailed light patterns into machine learning models, the models can learn to tell which plants are dry, which are short on nutrients, and which are under attack by disease, even when the plants still look normal to us. One recent study on crop stress showed that a deep learning model using this kind of data could sort plants into different stress levels with accuracy around 8 out of 10, and in some cases could pick up signs of stress more than 1 week before a person walking the field would see yellowing or wilting. And that is just one plant on its own. Once many plants share the same patch of ground, their hidden signals do not just stay inside each body. They start to shape what happens in the soil around them and in the shared space under their roots. How plants talk to each other.
And so we started labeling trees with nitrogen and phosphorus and deuterated water. And we found that all of these elements actually move back and forth between the trees.
When you stand in a field or a forest, it is easy to see each stem as its own thing. In reality, every plant sits in a cloud of tiny chemicals and shares the ground with invisible partners that link one root to the next. The signals inside one plant do not stop at the bark. They leak into the air and into the soil, where other plants can pick them up and respond. One clear example starts with insects chewing. When a caterpillar or beetle bites into a leaf, the plant does not just repair the wound, it also releases special smells into the air. Scientists call these smells volatile organic compounds, or VOCs. Volatile just means these molecules move into the air easily. They drift away from the damaged leaf and spread around the plant and its neighbors. The mix of smells is not random. When an insect eats, the plant changes the blend of VOCs in a clear way. These warning smells are called herbivore-induced plant volatiles, which just means plant smells that appear after insects attack. Nearby plants can smell these warning blends and get ready before the insects reach them. In one long-running study in the western United States, researchers watched wild sagebrush and wild tobacco growing side by side. When they clipped or damaged sagebrush in a way that mimicked insect feeding, nearby tobacco plants that were close enough to catch the sagebrush fumes later suffered less damage from real insects. The warning from the sagebrush had made the tobacco tougher before the attack began. This kind of eavesdropping is not limited to a few shrubs. Many crop plants use similar tricks. Corn plants chewed by caterpillars release a different set of gases than unharmed plants. Those gases can both warn nearby corn and call in help. Some of the same warning smells attract parasitic wasps, which lay their eggs in the caterpillars. The wasp larvae then eat the caterpillar from the inside out. This reduces the damage to the corn over time. Beans and other crops also change their smell when they are bitten, and the neighbors use that information to switch on their own defenses before they are touched. For this to work, plants need a way to sense these drifting chemicals. They do not have noses, but their leaves are covered in cells with receptors. A receptor is just a tiny lock that fits a certain molecule. When a warning gas lands on the right lock, that leaf cell starts a hormone chain inside the plant. Two key warning hormones are jasmonic acid and salicylic acid, which act like internal alarm lines and push the plant to make more bitter compounds, sticky resins, or protein blockers that make the leaves harder to digest. Air is only half the story. Under your feet, there is another kind of network that ties plants together. Most land plants form close ties with certain fungi that live on or in their roots. These are called mycorrhizal fungi. The word just means fungus root. Thin fungal threads spread through the soil from one root to the next. In exchange for sugar from the plant, the fungi help bring in water and nutrients like phosphorus and nitrogen from tiny cracks in the soil that roots cannot easily reach on their own. When many plants share the same type of fungus, their roots can end up linked by one common fungal web. This is called a mycorrhizal network.
And we found that actually these carbon molecules were moving from one tree to another tree through these mycorrhizal networks.
Through this shared web, carbon in the form of sugars can move from one plant to another. Water and nutrients can move as well. In forests of Douglas fir in western North America, experiments have shown that older trees can send carbon toward shaded seedlings through these fungal links, especially when the seedlings are in deep shade. The older trees are strong sources of sugar. The seedlings are hungry sinks. The fungus sits in between and carries the flow. Some studies suggest that these fungal networks can also carry defense-related signals. In one set of experiments, Douglas fir trees had some of their needles removed to mimic insect attack. Neighboring pine trees that shared the same fungal partners showed higher levels of defense enzymes, even though they were not directly damaged. The idea is that the fungus may move small carbon compounds and warning cues between roots, which then push the untouched trees to boost their defenses and give the fungus a better chance to keep healthy hosts. Roots and fungi do not just connect friends, they also let plants fight dirty. Some species use the shared soil zone as a place for quiet chemical attacks. This is called allelopathy, which you can think of as chemical pushing. A well-known example is the black walnut tree. Its roots and fallen leaves release a compound called juglone into the soil. Juglone can block key steps in how other plants move energy in their cells. So many garden plants struggle to sprout or grow near a walnut. Trials with juglone solutions and walnut leaf extracts show strong drops in growth and seed production for several test crops. Black walnuts are not alone. Many grasses, shrubs, and trees leak compounds into the ground that slow down neighbors. In some fields, this helps one plant keep control of space and water. On top of this chemical talk, microbes also trade genes in the soil. Bacteria can swap small DNA packages in a process called horizontal gene transfer, which is more like sharing tools with a neighbor than passing traits from parent to child. Many of the shared genes help microbes cope with stress, including metals, antibiotics, and some plant defense chemicals. As these genes spread, they change how the whole microbe community supports or attacks plants. Because all of this happens in dark, crowded soil, it is hard to see with normal tools. Today, teams collect soil from forests, grasslands, and farms. Read the DNA of the fungi and bacteria in each sample, and then use machine learning to find patterns. With this mix of DNA sequencing and computer models, they can map where different mycorrhizal fungi are likely to live and how rich those communities are. The wild ways plants shape air, weather, and life around them. Look at a flower in a garden and it just seems bright, pretty, and quiet. To an insect, that same flower is a loud, targeted message. Come here, land here, drink here, carry my pollen over there. Plants spend a huge amount of energy sending those messages out into the world. Most of the time, the audience is bees, flies, and other animals. We just happen to be standing in the middle of it, breathing everything in. Bees do not see the world the way we do. Human eyes pick up reds, greens, and blues. Bee eyes are tuned to blues, greens, and ultraviolet light, a kind of light that is invisible to us. Many flowers have dark centers, rings, or stripes that only show up under ultraviolet light. Scientists call these markings nectar guides because they act like runway lights, steering bees to the middle of the flower where the nectar and pollen sit. When researchers photograph flowers in ultraviolet light, a plain yellow petal can suddenly show a dark bullseye or bold arrows that point straight to the reward. Experiments show that bees land faster and spend less time searching on flowers with clear guides, and their foraging can become roughly 1/3 more efficient when patterns are strong and easy to read. To the plant, that means more visits in the same amount of time and more pollen moved between flowers. Color is only one half of the message. The other half is smell. Many insect-pollinated plants release a complex mix of sweet gases from their petals and nectar. One of the most common ingredients is a compound called beta-ocimene. Surveys of floral scents across hundreds of species show that beta-ocimene shows up again and again, especially in flowers that rely on a wide mix of pollinators. In field tests, flowers that release more of this single scent often get more visits from bees and other insects. From the plant's point of view, beta-ocimene is a simple way to say, there is food here. This stop is worth your time. Not every flower smells like a perfume shop. Some of the most successful ones smell like a crime scene. Carrion flowers, such as the huge corpse flower in Sumatra or the flat star-shaped stapelia, often grown in pots, release gases that smell very close to rotting meat. Chemical tests pick up sulfur-rich compounds like dimethyl disulfide and dimethyl trisulfide, along with traces of death molecules such as putrescine and cadaverine. Carrion flies and beetles use those same smells to find animal carcasses where they feed and lay eggs. The flowers copy that scent and even the color and texture of flesh. To the insects, they are honest signals of fresh body. To the plant, they are just a trick to get covered in pollen. Some plants go even further and reach straight into an insect's brain chemistry. Coffee bushes and many citrus trees lace their nectar with small amounts of caffeine. When honeybees are trained to link a certain smell with a sugary reward, bees that get a little caffeine are much better at remembering it later. In controlled tests, about 3 times as many caffeinated bees remembered the flower scent one day later, and roughly twice as many still remembered it after 3 days, compared with bees that drank plain sugar water. That means those bees keep coming back to the same kind of flower again and again. At the same time, every leaf on every tree is constantly breathing out much larger clouds of gas into the air. And those clouds do not just carry signals for insects, they change the air itself. When plants open their pores to take in carbon dioxide and release oxygen, they also leak other small gases. These gases do not stay as they are. Sunlight and other chemicals in the air break them apart and rebuild them into tiny particles called aerosols. Those particles are big enough to act as seeds for clouds. They help water droplets form. They can change how bright a cloud is, and they affect how much sunlight gets bounced back to space or trapped near the ground. In other words, when a forest talks through its gases, the message keeps going after the insects are done listening. The most obvious way plant messages hit our bodies is pollen. They are built to travel by wind and air and to stick to any surface they land on. Climate records and plant models now show that as the planet warms, plants in many parts of the world are starting their pollen season earlier in the year and keeping it going for longer. An analysis of North American data found that, on average, the pollen season has become roughly 1 week longer and now starts close to 3 weeks earlier than it did a few decades ago. Global modeling work suggests that total annual pollen production in many regions could rise by about 1/6 to almost 2/5 as temperature and rainfall patterns change. If you then also assume that plants produce about twice as much pollen under richer carbon dioxide levels, End-of-century pollen levels in some areas could be roughly triple today's. Ragweed, one of the worst allergy plants in North America and now a growing problem in Europe.
When the ragweed pollen typically starts flying, about 23 million Americans are allergic to ragweed.
Has been tested directly in growth chambers. When researchers grew ragweed under 3 kinds of air, old pre-industrial air, today's air, and the high levels expected in the future, they found a big change. Plants made about 1/3 more pollen in today's air and more than 3 times as much in the future air, compared with the lowest level. Newer work shows that ragweed grown under higher carbon dioxide can also produce pollen that triggers stronger allergic reactions in lungs. Plants are simply growing larger and putting more resources into reproduction. Our immune systems are the ones paying the price. The human impact here is large. Asthma affects an estimated 260 million people worldwide and was linked to about 455,000 deaths in the year 2019. Allergic rhinitis, the medical name for long-term hay fever, is thought to affect roughly 1/10 to 1/5 of people in regions like the United States and Europe. In Europe alone, one study estimated that the number of people sensitized to ragweed pollen could more than double, from about 33 million to around 77 million, by the middle of this century as the plant spreads north and pollen loads grow. Recent seasons have given a preview of this future, with some cities in North America reporting daily pollen counts many times higher than typical and pollen dust visible on rivers, cars, and streets. From the plant's side, pollen is just a tool for reaching another flower. For people with asthma or strong allergies, that extra layer of plant communication shows up as inhalers, hospital visits, and missed days at school and work. The same plant gases that help seed clouds can also mix with our own pollution and make air quality worse. Reviews of plant breath show that natural gases from forests and crops can react with exhaust from cars and factories to build up fine particles and ground-level ozone, both of which are harmful to human lungs. Thanks for watching. Now check out the videos popping up on screen for more unbelievable stories.